Shalom and good day all, this is Healing29 back again for another indie comic review, and in this indie comic review I'm covering Of the Miracles by Joe Glass. And first things first, let's get things ready for the first issue to be covered. But with this I will be reviewing all of these as one story. Seeing that this is the rest of the collection to this particular story. So looking at the first cover, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Not really a lot. I do feel it could have improved quite a bit. So I'll show you some of the internal art around the beginning, middle and end, and also what's happening story-wise with the characters. So as we start to move into the beginning of the story, we have the main character of, I think it's Elliot. And of course he's using some of his powers to fly throughout the universe which he is living in. We move into the middle of this second issue, to which he's now catching up with some friends. And last but not least, as we start to move towards the end of the story and he catches up with his old man in space. As we move into the next issue, being issue 3, which I have under cover 2, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? In some essence it does, because we do get the appearance of a villain in this story, and I must admit the villain does come off a little bit more interesting than the main character. Just there needs to be more input. So let's have a look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. So as the story begins, we have, of course, some villains starting to make their appearances within the story. We get to see a little bit more happening between Elliot and also his friends. And last but not least, we get to catch up once again with the villain, or one of the main villains in this story, which feels like they might actually be female instead of male. So if you have a problem with Joe Glass's character punching a woman, take it up with Joe Glass. So moving into the next cover, being the third cover for review. Does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give a 7 out of 10. It's now time to move into the internal art around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. So as we start to move towards the middle, or the beginning, we see one of the heroes' lives be put at risk by one of the villains. As we jump a little bit further, we get to see a little bit more with one of the characters, as they seem to have, it looks like a telepathy type of ability. And last but not least, we have the appearance of another villain. So for the internal art overall, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the area of the story. First things first, do we get anything time-wise related? Yes, we do. We get 2 weeks later. We also get several hours later, the late evening, and also days later. The locations that I managed to get from the books, not many of them sort of like pointed out, but what I was able to gather from the story, we had, I think it's the Canton Valley. We also, the Valley High School. We had Morgan's residence, and somewhere else being used. The cast of characters consisting of Elliot, Harlan, we had Aiden, we had Empath, and someone else there. Excuse my bad writing. But for the overall story rating, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I do have some slight criticisms though, in regards to sort of like the character. I think it's Elliot. I think one thing that Joe Glass has done, and he might have put himself in a bit of a mousetrap with this. I think at the beginning, like remembering issue 1, I feel that he's given his character one too many powers, and he needs to be stripped of some of his powers. I don't care if his powers get stripped off and passed to other people. I think it would help the character more, and also be able to give the character some more vulnerability. I think with that, it would also help improve the likability of the character, because I must admit the villains in this do actually feel a little bit more interesting than the actual hero. Another thing as well with the character, it feels like he needs to go under anger management, because there's just some people that he just goes out of his way and freaking punches, like not even be able to sort of like give him a talk no jutsu moment. It's the only other way to put it. In other words, maybe he could try talking to, say, low-level villains about changing their ways instead of just punching them in the face, thinking that's going to solve every problem in the world, when in reality, it would only cause the consequences to, if anything, he'd be creating more villains that way than, in a way, help solving a villain's problem, especially if they're like a low-level street villain. But when it comes to, say, superpowered villains, okay, yes, I could understand a little bit more power could be used against that character, even if it does mean punching them in the face. So for low level, hold back on the punching, find another way. This series does almost look like it will probably get a sequel to it, but whether I'm around to read it or not, I got no idea. But until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.